Hello everyone, my name is Aya. This video is on emotional processing. So I want to share with you a procedure that I work with. This is something that's going to help you to better clear emotions from your body, to better regulate your nervous system, to clear old beliefs from the system, and help you to make better decisions. So know that this is a process that I work with in my clinic and when I work with people one-on-one. And there's much more to it, like somatic practices, body-based practices, breath work or clearing emotions, and then some mental work to rewrite belief structures. But I can give you a lot of the information and it's going to give you a lot of value. And you're going to have a lot of clicks in the moment because this system is based on the Tao, based on the way of harmony. And the wisdom here is that the ideal is that we're centered. So we're not too much in either polarity, the middle way, right? So we're not running away from suffering. And we're not overly orientated towards happiness. Because that's going to create a resistance to one pole or the other. The neutral position is when we're open. And there's a wisdom here in how to face life. Because if we want to make dream affirmative decisions, like conscious decisions that keep us out of the old patterns of the past that we've inherited based on old emotions. If we want to orientate towards our dream life, what we really want to cultivate, we need to be cleared of those old emotions, be willing to see what the stories are and to make better decisions in the now. And when we have resistance to feeling those emotions, we don't learn their wisdom. The 5 emotions I'm going to speak to today are angers, sadness, anxiety, worry, and fear. And there's many ways of working with this system of polarities because it's all about relationship. When we fix our fundamental relationships, we rewrite the programming in our subconscious, which is really what's offering the way that your nervous system perceives everything. So when we change this conditioning, we completely change our life. And by changing our resistance to these emotions, we build a whole new relationship with life, with greater surrender and ease. Because the emotions, the anger and the sadness, they're actually not so bad, so long as we don't resist them. That whole resistance is what creates the discomfort, the disease, that pulls us away from our center. That's a good way of saying it. When we're centered, we're in that neutral position, able to take on the shift that happens because everything is about relationship. And let's talk about surrender for a quick sec. Surrender is the same if you're surrendering to death, discomfort, disease, or the highest bliss that you can possibly imagine. It's about being better at surrendering. So when we have resistance to surrendering to one polarity, it dampens our development in the opposite polarity. So if you want to experience more bliss, more joy, and surrender into that, you have to go the other way too. Your roots of the tree are what determines how high you can grow and how fruitful you'll be. So let's talk about these emotions. So we have the liver. This is a larger system and it associates them with certain organs in the body. We have our liver and it's associated with anger and frustration on the acquired mind. That's what we want to let go of. The wisdom here is that we cultivate a virtue that isn't the opposite quality. So it's not like we're feeling sadness, so we want to orientate towards happiness. No, because that's going to create the polarity. The wisdom here is that when we're feeling anger, we cultivate compassion and kindness for ourselves. That compassion and kindness allows us to actually see and befriend and be with our anger instead of the anger taking over us as it may have done in the past and creating old patterns that were originally programmed into us. I'll show you how this works. So when I went into this, I was like, what's my relationship with anger? So I thought back to the last time I experienced anger, like uncontrollable. You know what I did? I hit myself in the head. Boom, 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 boom. And I was like, why? Why that pattern? So when I was young, I would get angry and I would punch holes in the wall. It looks like Swiss cheese in my room. My parents didn't like that. And what they offered is an energy that made me want to quit this behavior. So I did. Every time that anger came up, instead of punching a wall, I pulled it inwards. All that anger being pulled inwards caused that anger to go inwards. Wow. So I later developed, and I didn't just get so angry. Like, I never lost control throughout, well, I did at times, but that pattern became less and less because I remained at my center. So long as I'm in my center, I don't have uncontrollable anger, right? So it just takes the right amount of stimulus, and we live in a very fortunate society where we're not tested too much. But know that your conditioning is your conditioning, and in a certain environment, you'll be pushed to that point where that will come out. And if you have anger, for me, that pattern would come out. So I need to get at the root of it and take it out of my conditioning. So now that I know where that pattern came from, I can do the work on it. This is part of the somatic and breath work that allows us to get into the underlying energy and structure of this. But some of the work that I can do is to take kindness, the virtue we can cultivate, and then offer it to myself, offer it to my child self, who was too young to know what to do at the time, offer it to my parents, who were just trying to organize with love and create a family with harmony, and everybody else in that environment that was there when I laid down those original patterns. And through that work, I'm going to begin to release those old patterns, and then I'm going to cultivate new ones. What is the appropriate way to deal with anger? Okay, you see how a little bit of that alchemical work takes place? So let's move on to anxiety, overexcitement, and shock. And this is all in the heart. And the wisdom here is that we deal with this through love and finding inner contentment. So let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety, very much related to overexcitement, is just overstimulation, so much so that we don't feel in our center. So we come off and we avoid that sensation that's going on in the body. Once again, our resistance to the experience is actually a lot worse than what it is to actually just feel anxiety in the body. So when we drop that resistance, we can feel that and we can move past that. And one of the ways that we do that is with self-love and with having a contentment of what is. Because the anxiety comes about when we're resisting a certain situation. And it's like, I don't want it to be this way. What's going to happen? I don't know. I'm uncomfortable. So when we're just like, okay, we're here right now. We're safe. Come back to safety. Come back to love. And then that's what's cultivated. And then the more that we strengthen that, the more that we cultivate that, the easier it will be to withstand anxiety. So we work with our emotions. We don't try to suppress them. We build the opposite quality, so we create resilience so that when we want to move towards our dream, these are all the emotions that are always going to come up with us. You'll always be tested with anger, with anxiety. It's part of the human experience. So what we do is we learn better patterns so that we don't pass them on to ourselves and other people. And then the last piece of this one is shock. So shock is when you're so overstimulated that in the Taoist system, the Shen, or the spirit that resides in the heart, it leaves the body. You can kind of think of someone who's maybe had intense sexual abuse trauma or an intense accident, and they went into shock. And they're there, they're moving around. But their spirit, or part of them, that light behind their eyes, you don't see, they're not there. And that would be the spirit not fully in the body. So that's what can happen with shock. And once again, the body doesn't feel safe to be in, so that's why they left. Maybe it was a traumatic accident to their leg, or the sexual abuse example. It was so traumatizing they didn't want to feel that, so they literally, a part of them left their body. So when we do this work, we reintegrate the parts of ourselves that had been lost in the past. And once again, we can do the work on the past in that particular incident, and then offering ourselves the love that we needed at that time that wasn't felt, and then love for all the other people in that. And that's not so hard when it comes from war or rape and all the other challenging experiences that we can receive this initial conditioning and the PTSD and the other things that come along with it. So this is not easy work. So love is the way to deal with that, because we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, and the only way we can continue to grow and evolve is to do our best to set ourselves up with the ideal conditions for an individual to grow. So that's the garden within ourselves, and that is unconditional love for ourselves, even when we make big mistakes, even when we're having challenge. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to really see ourselves in all situations. So that's the heart. Just looking at my time here. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get through these, so let's see how many we do. Let's get into the spleen. The associated emotion here is worry. That's the acquired emotion, pardon me. And then the virtue that we develop is faith. So, what does worry feel like in your body? When do you get worried? And how do you deal? Like, what's your relationship with worry? So as you get into this line of questioning, I want you to also feel into your spleen in the body. It's the wisdom of the Taoist Chinese medicine, is that we have these emotions and they are energy in the body. And the energy gets stuck when we hold the emotions in the process, and the energy flows freely through us when we're experiencing it. So when we fully experience our anger or our sadness, it expresses. How do you express your worry? So and then what happens, which is cool, is we can develop new patterns, because the old expressions of, say, worry might have been a series of controlled behaviors that give your body safety or numbing, overeating, TV, whatever it was, avoidance of whatever you're avoiding to feel, and whatever that worry feels like in your body. You can develop a new worry pathway, just different neural coding. When I worry, I dance. And what we can do is we can dance, and we can dance with the cultivation of the virtue of faith. So it's like, okay, I feel my worry, and it's important to feel it. And then these are its attachments. And you can also do the history work of when you first felt worry and how you developed worry patterns and who the dominant models of worry were in your life. How did your mom or dad experience worry? And you can see the legacy, and then you can go, okay, that's the old pattern. Every time I'm worried, I'm going to dance because I have faith that things are going to work out. So I know that's going to help you to shift your state in the moment, and it's going to move energy because you're moving your body and you're breathing. And if you're really doing the work, you'll feel that emotion come up and out when it's ready. And that's a beautiful pattern. Okay, we got sadness associated with the lungs, and grief and despair. And then we have courage. I really like this one. How do we deal with sadness? We have the courage to feel it. That's really powerful for me, because that's one of the ones that recently, I guess that's why it's more resonant, has really helped me to go deeper into my sadness, because once again, there's depth to this stuff. There's like superficial emotions and then the deeper emotions, and the deeper you go down, you can go down lifetimes in your DNA of the legacy of these energetic relationships that you have. So feeling my sadness, I looked back on my patterns and I saw that I could feel it to a certain level, but I couldn't fully embody my sadness, because when I was young, I didn't have any models that cried very often, or I didn't get imprinted that it felt appropriate or safe to cry. So I would often experience sadness coming up in breath work and other things. Now my work has been to allow that to fully culminate into the tears. And that's like the full alchemical process, right? From that sadness into liquid and then letting it go out of the eye. And I couldn't always get there. Like there was a fair amount of conditioning that blocked the facial muscles or whatever, the nervous system in the respective regions, from allowing that full expression. So questions there is like, how do you experience your sadness? Do you allow yourself time to be sad after something is challenging in that way? Is this like a practice, a part of your life that you've developed? And then, once again, how did your patterns of sadness develop? Who were the primary people in your life that you saw express sadness? And in those early childhood experiences, how did you express sadness, and how did that lay down the patterns of how you feel it now? And let's get to this last one. I'm going to have to get a little bit shorter, be a little bit quicker in my speech, is fear. The opposite value is wisdom. I really like this one too, because it's not what I would think immediately. Fear or wisdom. How does that work? But I can tell you from my own experience, when I'm in a fearful state, time speeds up, and that time, the sense of time, which is not true reality, because it's always the now moment, is a delusion, and that's not wisdom. And it puts me into a pace of life where those hormones that are created as a byproduct of stress and fear begin to run my nervous system, and it puts me into complete delusion that I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or there's not going to be enough X, Y, Z, and then once again I'm not safe, and that's going to ripple through my whole system. The wisdom is often I can just sit down, meditate, breathe, feel that fear, see its attachments, what's going on in my life. Is it true that I don't have enough? Because I'm here now. So every time that I've ever felt those fear, and it's risen to the point where it's like, you're not going to do X, Y, Z, like, how many times does that come true? So there's a lack of clarity, a lack of wisdom, and develops when fear is caught in the system. And it's caught in the system, its energy is affecting the physical body and the emotional body. And it's activating old belief patterns based on, the nature of abundance, the nature of safety, etc. So by continually cultivating wisdom, we can have that higher mind, the eagle vision, and not get so caught into our problems, this personal mind and body, and see the wider perspective of what we are as a collective, and the wider vision, and from that higher perspective, that higher state of consciousness, which is not caught in the momentary pressures of circumstance in this moment, then we can begin to not only develop strategies, but move into those emotions, this is the important part of the work, is that it can allow us to be better at feeling these. Because fear happens, you're about to do a bungee jump. You're going to have the symptom of fear, perhaps, if you're new to this and it's a condition. You can have that, and it's like, how do you build a relationship with that? And based on your fundamental relationship with it, it's going to determine your entire life. Because if you have underlying fear in the system, and you don't have a good relationship to fear, you may not be pressed day to day because we live in a good, safe environment. You may not be pressed, so you might not pursue your dreams, because part of pursuing your dreams involves dealing with all the fear, because your dream is something that's beyond what you have now. You got to take a step out. So if you don't have a protocol practice or cultivation work within yourself of approaching fear, then it's going to be a lot harder to move faster towards your dreams, because once again, all these emotions are part of life. So to better be equipped for dealing with life and to better move forward towards our dream, these protocols we have in place. So got a little bit of an understanding of the whole system, and I hope you have some intuitive wisdom as to what parts of yourself you're seeing more clearly or you'd like to work on. If you want to learn more about the full process, the somatic movements, or how I work with this with individuals so that they can overcome all their challenges and create resilience, just give me a shout out. Thank you for watching. I Om.